Hey everyone, welcome to an episode of Table Talk. I'm your host, Jake Combs, and tonight we're looking at Blood Bowl, the Norse team, specifically the actual models themselves, the team card pack, and then we also have the latest issue of Spike magazine. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at all these. Now, keep in mind that these items were provided by Games Workshop for the purpose of this video. So I wanted to say thank you to them for providing these for us. But right now, as of the day that this video is released, these are available for pre-order through the Games Workshop website. So let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to look at the models first before we actually really take a look at the cards and the magazine, because well, actually no real specific reason, but I always like to go through the models first anyway. So we'll just call it personal preference. Now, anytime you are using a knife, I do recommend that if you are old enough to do it yourself, that you are just careful and are always cutting away from yourself. If you're not old enough to be doing it yourself, then make sure you either have parent supervision or get a parent to do it for you. Would hate for somebody to get hurt in the process. So we've got, in the one box, it is, I believe I read 14 miniatures. Let's see, yeah, 14 miniatures. So that's the 12 actual Norse players themselves, and then 2 of the little boars, beer boars is what they're called. And then in addition to that, turn and reroll markers. Alright, so right off the bat, it is actually 2 of the same sprue, but looking at the cover, it looks like there's enough variation in there that you can swap, mix and match, so that way you still kind of have, with all 14, some unique members for your team for sure. So we're just going to set one of these aside, since we only need to look at one of them. Now, one thing I really like that I think fits the Norse aesthetic a lot is the turn marker itself. So, I mean, looking at that, it looks like, the front of a Viking ship. I don't really know what that part is called, but with I think not the mast, but yeah, I used to know what that was called, but it's a really cool, intricate, dragon, wood piece, as far as at least how they painted it on the box. And then we have our players, and let's see. So looking, we have 2, 4, 5. Okay, there's the 6th. Okay, so yeah, it is 6 per sprue. At first glance, it looked like there was actually fewer than what the box art said. Now, there are a couple interesting pieces here. Now, looking at the cover, we do see 2 of them are standing on something. So we have this rock with a bunch of details, as well as a skull inside a Blood Bowl helmet. And then we also have a barrel for the other one to stand on, so that way, again, you still have unique models on the board. And with this team, I mean, there's definitely a lot more detail than what we saw with the last Corn release. I love the overall aesthetic, the Viking team. Now, my understanding is that there were Norse teams originally. Now, if you are looking to make these even more unique, I think a great kit to kind of merge these with for some kit bashing would be to bring in the Chaos Marauders or Chaos Marauder Horsemen models. And so you can either take pieces from these to go over there to have even more unique Marauders and Marauder Horsemen, or take those pieces, bring them over here, and so you can have even more unique Norse players. And doing that, even if you're playing against another Norse team, you're definitely going to have something that's more unique, so it's easier to stand out and stand apart from them. But overall, I really like the Viking aesthetic. Now, from what I'm familiar with, my understanding is there was a previous team, like I said, but I don't remember much Norse lore in either Age of Sigmar or Warhammer Fantasy, other than just the Marauder tribes themselves, which were just very Viking-esque, and but on a grander scale when it came to joining the armies of chaos. And so I'm definitely curious if there's some backstory to these guys, maybe some special lore that I'm not familiar with. I mean, it is entirely possible, but I haven't heard anything yet. Then we do have our transfer sheet, which has some Norse symbols as well as some labels to actually put on the bases as well, like beer bore, so you can put the unit types. I really like that they included this, so that makes identifying the different model types a lot easier to go with the card packs. And then of course we have our models. So we're going to set this over here so that way we can zoom in a little bit closer when it's time. Next, we're going to look at the team card pack. All right. So we have the how to use these cards card. So basically there's 6 player reference cards, 18 blank player cards, 3-star player cards, and 16 special play cards. So the player reference cards, these are your starting stats for each type. Like the Ulf Werner, probably messed that one up. Kind of looks like a cross between a Chaos Marauder and maybe a Space Wolf without the armor, just because of the I can't remember what they call it in 40k for the Space Wolves, but basically what gives them their fangs. So it kind of looks like this is meant to be a like someone that's like mid transition to a werewolf, possibly. We have the Norse Berserker. We have the Valkyrie, the Beer Boar, which I think is going to be pretty essential, the Norse Raider Lineman, and then lastly the Yeti. Now with the Yeti model, I know these are coming out from Forge World. There's at least 2 different ones I've seen. I mean, I've seen 2 different ones. There might be more. And looking at them, the basic sculpt is very similar to the to some of the creatures that they came out with for Warcry. I'm forgetting the name. I want to say it was like we have the Ogroid, but that's not the one I'm thinking of. The one that's Cyclopean is the one that I'm thinking of. I mean, you could easily take that model, and if you're good with green stuff, sculpt some hair on there and make them a bit fuzzier, and you would easily have a Yeti using that model. Then we have our blank player cards. Now, me personally, I would probably write these in pencil, so that way if the character died, you could then replace them with a new character without having to get new cards. And then our 3 star players, we have Ivar Eriksson, then we have Grog Snowpelt, which is one of the Yetis, and then Thorson Stoutmead. Which, looking at him, I'm guessing he's one of the berserkers. And then we have our 16 special play cards. We're just going to pick a couple of them to read off. This one is Titanic Haymaker. Play this card when a Norse berserker on your team knocks down an opposition player as a result of a block action and is not knocked down themselves. Duration, discard immediately after use, and the effect, the Norse berserker may immediately perform another block action against another opposition player they are marking. So basically, I mean, typically when you're doing a block and you get knocked down, both you and the opponent get knocked down together, and so that card will allow you to negate at least the half where you're falling down, and so then you can then perform the action again. Now you would need like 2 or multiple cards that basically do that effect, which I doubt we're going to have multiples of those in here, just because of keeping things more original, more dynamic, and so you'd only be able to do it really against 2 players if you had that card. And then this one, Chugged Like a Champion. So play this card after declaring a block action during your team turn. Discard it immediately after use, and during the block action, the player who declared the block action rolls 1 additional block dice to a maximum of 3. So basically giving you a better chance at blocking the hit. And we'll look at one more, the Armored Boar. Play this card during the pregame sequence after step 5 but before step 6. This card expires at the end of the game. Choose 1 beer boar on your team. While this card is in play, the chosen beer boar has an AV of 8+. So basically, boosting up the stats on one of the beer boars. So, with that card in mind, you're definitely going to want to make sure you are, painting them differently. At least, maybe do different colors of fur, so that way they stand out from each other a bit more. And then lastly, we have Spike Magazine. So right off the bat, we have, excuse me, painted examples of each of the units. So the one that we were looking at before was a berserker. And then we go into a little bit of lore about the Norse teams. So based on this, the Norskins, they love nothing more than a good fight and an excuse to basically drink as much as they can stomach. And so Blood Bowl is the perfect opportunity to do both. So it definitely makes sense of why they're there. I actually had forgotten about the Norskins from the old world, but as far as I'm aware, we don't really have any Norskins in Age of Sigmar, and I'm not really certain that the current Blood Bowl setting is really in either the old world or Age of Sigmar. I kind of feel like it's its own standalone, kind of almost like universe, but still using the lore and the units. Now on the back, or actually a couple pages in, we actually have a list of star players that you can actually use, and so there's one I noticed here that I've never noticed before in one of these magazines, and I've also never seen a Blood Bowl version of this player. So I'm hoping that maybe we'll actually see that later on this year. But it's Grombrindal, the White Dwarf himself, as one of the available star players. And then we go into famous Norse teams, where you get a little bit of some of the teams and some information about them, specifically a team spotlight for the Norska Rampagers, including career highlights. And then a star player spotlight with Ivar Eriksson, including his career highlights. And then, so we have each of the star players get their own spotlight in here. Scrog Snowpelt, the information about the Northern Leagues, Frozen Lake Blood Bowl pitch. That actually sounds like it would be really cool, and now I think the art itself is pretty amusing. A Santa hat on a mammoth skeleton. And then we have the pro playbook for the Norskin Way. So this is where you're going to get, the individual stats and details about each unit type for the game, and the price for starting rosters, basically depending on your play style. So there's hit hard and fast, and then there's watch the fur fly. Now I imagine watch the fur fly is going to be more meant for brawling more than anything else, and hit hard, hit and fast is going to be more in line with some strength, but mostly focusing on speed to deliver that ball. And then some setups themselves for some of the matches. Another star player spotlight, this one for Thorsten Stoutmead. And for those that play Dungeon Bowl, there is some looks like some college information in here for some of the units that would work for some of those colleges. So like specifically College of Beasts, College of Heavens, and then we end with a 3-page comic centered around the Norskin team, and then our star players as well as the remaining models from the team. So now honestly, the magazine itself is not required to use this team. You're either, for the team, you're going to need the team card pack or the magazine, so that we get all the stats. But honestly, otherwise, you don't really need them to play once you have those stats. But I definitely would recommend the magazine, just because of having that extra lore, get a little bit more information about them, and then as well as the eligible star player rules, just because there's some in here that you wouldn't think that would really go with them. Like you have Grim Ironjaw, but you can also use Hackflum Scuttlespike. So definitely gives you a big range, but some of those choices, other players are going to be questioning why they're on that team, and so having the magazine be able to show them this star player is eligible, and so that way justifies their use. But definitely looking forward to giving these guys a play and getting them built up. Haven't decided what my Norse team colors are going to look like. Probably do a little bit of Viking research to see which Viking had which colors, and see if there's a scheme that I can see working really well with these guys. But the kit is definitely one of the more unique sets, especially with the kit bashing options that are out there, that you can easily expand on this using again the Chaos Marauders or the Chaos Marauder Horsemen. So definitely a lot of things that can be done there, as well as vice versa, to kind of change things up on your Age of Sigmar side too. So definitely some cool stuff, some cool options. All right, so here's the sprue. This is the woodwork that I was talking about. You can see all that detail right there. And then here are the beer boards themselves. And definitely one of my favorite models from the set. And I really like that stone with the skull. Definitely plan on using that for some kit bashing later as well. think this is some hair coming out from underneath the helmet of one of the players. A decent amount of detail on here. I do like the coin for this set as well. But other than that, thank you guys for watching. I hope you have a great night, and stay tuned, because at the same time that this video releases, if you haven't already seen it, we'll be doing another one, this one for 40K specifically. So stay tuned for that. Thank you.